Spanking, I believe, is a great disciplinary tool when used properly. What is spanking and how is it defined? According to an article in the current direction of psychological science, a commonly adopted definition specifies spanking as hitting a child with an open hand on the buttocks or extremities with the intent to discipline without leaving the bruise or punishment. So, who in this class, growing up as a kid, got spanked? At least one. Oh, how about twice or more? Okay, y'all are better, so y'all really. I'm sure for most of you it wasn't on a daily basis. It wasn't an everyday thing or even a monthly thing. It was like I perceive in my house when we did it appropriately. I have two children myself. For me, I have a 14-year-old and a 3-year-old. My 14-year-old obviously is grown out of the stage of getting spanked, but when he was little, he did get spanked, not often, but sometimes, when appropriate. But my 3-year-old, that's where we're at right now in our household, and we've discussed it. I've discussed it with my husband, and we do other methods of discipline, such as time out on taking away privileges and so forth. 3 years old, a little young to know what privileges are, but he's starting to come into it. Usually what gets accomplished at our house is after my son hasn't listened and obeyed and gotten to him out several times, I can usually persuade him and say, hey, I'm tell your dad, and you get a little bit better, go a little bit longer without getting reprimanded with a spanking. But sometimes that still doesn't work. So when used correctly, I believe spanking, along with timeout and privileges restriction can be enforced, I'm sorry. When used correctly, spanking can be an effective tool. It is used with timeout and used with restriction. I'm going to tell you a little story about my son. You just saw one portion of his video, which I'm going to show you in just a minute. But recently, in the last couple of weeks, he goes to daycare. I go to school, I do a job, so I am busy. My husband's busy, works at UPS. So, he is in nature a very intelligent little 3-year-old. He just turned 3 in February. He goes to a home care provider, and she has 5 other kids. Relatively close to his age, one's a little bit smaller, the other one's a little bit older. He is playing outside with his friends, and she tells him to go inside to go to the restroom. Well, he decides he doesn't want to go inside. He decides it's time to play outside. So instead of listening, he goes into the little playhouse where a younger child is, and the little kid will not get out of the playhouse. So he proceeds not to go inside to his instructors to go to the restroom, but pees on the little boy. sure y'all were all thinking, oh my gosh, I have such a terrible child. But that's really not the case. He's just in the moment playing outside, and when you have smaller kids, he's 3, so the other kid is 18 months, and so he does understand, but doesn't understand completely. Okay, well, strike 1, he gets his time out, he has a little bit of an attitude the rest of the day, and so forth. He has a nap, I pick him up, I get this morning, I'm like, holy cow, what am I supposed to do? Okay, so we take him home, we talk to him, he still has a little bit of kind of an attitude, talking back a little bit. Day 2. Day 2 comes along, and she's taking some of the kids to school, as she does, and he decides that he doesn't want to listen again. Runs across the parking lot. So she says she has to run after him and chase him, which is like a huge no-no, especially when you have 5 other kids that you're trying to wrangle in the car or into school or wherever you're going. So, time out again. Day continues. In the afternoon, he's playing, they're downstairs, and he is decided that he is going to play with his sword, which she has swords, they play. Another kid is playing with blocks by himself, playing. And my son, his name is Aiden, decides, oh no, you cannot play with my blocks. Those are my blocks. And whacks him in the face with the sword. Enough so that she had to put an ice pack on it. So, obviously it was a little hard. Again, time out. So, I pick him up at the end of the day, and I'm thinking, what is going on? Well, my 3-year-old is very strong-willed, just like his dad, and very stubborn. So, we go home, we have a talk with him. I tell my husband, I said, you need to talk to him. He's not listening to me, he's not listening to the daycare provider, you need to talk to him. So he talks to him, he says, if you can, you're going to get a spanking. Because obviously, this is not working. I'm not working, reasoning with him is not working. Okay? So, night continues. Lo and behold, he's still running his mouth, and so he does end up getting his spanking. Next day, perfect angel. How that works, I don't know. But, it's not just about talking to your kids. It's not just about making sure that they're in timeout. It's making sure that you know, that they know that you mean business. So, we're not talking about trying to punish them every single day, as I'm sure all of y'all have gotten a spanking before. And I'm sure there are more memorable times of what you did, and we're probably thinking back, wow, would I really do that? So I'm going to show this little video here, and just kind of to give you an idea of my son and his comprehension of what a spanking is. And I'm sorry it's sideways. I just asked him a few little questions, and this was the first question I asked. I didn't reverse it with him. I didn't do any of that. It's just him. And mind you, he did just turn 3 in February.
Aiden, do you know what a spanking is? What is a spanking?
Take me on my butt.
Okay, spanking on your butt? Okay, what do you get a spanking for? From mom? For what?
For mommy and daddy.
And mommy and daddy? Okay. What do you do to get a spanking?
To get in trouble.
You get in trouble? Like what?
Like I can come out.
Or after you get in time out? Okay. Because why? What did you do to get a spanking?
I don't be nice.
You don't be nice?
So that was just a little video. And I think even at an early age, when you do it appropriately, kids do have a good understanding of that you're not just trying to be mean to them, but you have told them and you're reinforcing it. When you take a child, it shouldn't just be from whenever or all the time. It should be, you should try to use it in the methods, as I stated, try to come out, try, restricting the privileges. Next, I want to talk about kind of the differences of, like spanking as opposed to verbal abuse. I don't know if any of you have ever been associated with any verbal abuse, but sometimes it is a lot more detrimental to you. You get in trouble and you think, okay, when I'm a kid, I got a spanking, but as opposed to a parent that is just on you constantly, you don't do this right, you don't do that right. I mean, that is a very mental changing aspect for you. Even when you're little little, or even now that you're an adult, if somebody talks harshly to you, you're like, whoa, what did I do? How come I mean, and it makes you really think back and reflect. If anybody has ever been talked to in here harshly, do you think that you remember that more so than you did your childhood where you got in trouble this one time you got spanked? I mean, really think about that. Constant verbal abuse towards a child can start with a lot. It can lead to aggression, verbal abuse of others in the future. According to an article in Child Abuse and Neglect, several studies examining the unique effects of parental severe physical and verbal aggression using national and CPS samples have highlighted the negative impact of verbal aggression beyond severe physical aggression. So what they're saying here basically is verbal aggression can be a lot, much more severe towards you in your everyday life and then even growing up with you. It is a constant thing in your life. So those are kind of the pros of why I think spanking is a good idea, especially if you do it in obviously moderation. Can't just be like, oh, I'm going to beat my kid every day. You don't want to do that. But at the same time, you want to be able to discipline your children. You want to make sure that they know that you are the authoritarian figure and they do follow directions. Now that we've kind of talked about the pros a little bit, I want to talk about some of the cons. I mean, obviously, when there's a good, there's always an evil, I guess you can say. Spanking can be harmful to children, and spanking has adverse effects on children later in life, such as aggression, criminal, and antisocial behavior. And we're talking about that in the context of a kind of a bigger picture of spanking every day, spanking, I don't know if you guys have ever been in a situation or noticed where children are severely spanked, or spanked for every little thing, or spanked with objects, or not just spanked, but hit in the face. I mean, it could be a variety of things, you could have, using it to reinforce, or you could go all the way to the very extreme, which happens a lot. According to an article in the Los Angeles Times, spanking is harmful to children. The more parents spank, the more likely children are to hit the parents, and the more likely children are to have low problem-solving skills. Which that kind of means is, kind of go back to what I said previously, is that, if you spank your kid every day, they're thinking the only way to solve the problem is to hit back. Which, kids are little, they're subjective. So you have to kind of make sure that you reinforce, if you're going to spank them, reinforce it with, this is why we're doing this, and this is, we already put you in timeout, we already, you have to go over all of those things. Kids are like sponges, they absorb everything. Maybe I've been talking about kids like that word. Kind of, well, some parent just wasn't thinking about it, or they were talking to somebody else, and then it was they picked up exactly what the parent did. So that's kind of one of those things that you have to be really careful with. Most studies against spanking where spanking is excessive, and the studies are flawed in the fact that they do speak about using spanking in conjunction. They do not use, they're flawed because they do not use spanking in conjunction with other means of discipline. Spanking can have adverse effects on children later in life, such as aggression, criminal, and antisocial behavior, according to the article in Current Direction of Psychological Science. The continuous spanking, where it gets to the point where it's abused, and kids they were going to be more strong, more antisocial, not being able to use their problem-solving skills because that's not what they learned growing up. So that can be very problematic. And according to an article in the Journal of Child Adolescent Trauma, a case study was done where 20% of pediatricians and approximately 1/3 of mental health professionals and early childhood professionals recommended spanking at least once in the past year to a parent of children age 5 and younger. So, kind of on the same hand, you have all of these professionals that are telling you, well, you to spank the kid every day. I'm not telling you to be aggressive with your kid, but I mean, it's appropriate that there are kids that are very strong-willed and kids that don't respond, or they do respond to talking to and sometimes they don't. I mean, again, for example, my kid, sometimes he's great. The last time he had a spanking was, I'd have to really think about it, 4 or 5 months ago. It's not like we do every day. It's kind of done as a last resort. And to basically kind of like an attitude adjustment. So, I guess in conclusion, there are pros and cons to spanking. Spanking, when not used properly, can be harmful, and when not used properly, can have an adverse effect on children later in life. The key is not to be excessive. To make sure that you're still talking to your kids, that you are explaining to them, and that you use it in conjunction with other means of discipline. I guess my question for y'all is, spank or not spank? Okay?